Hey, give credit where credit's due. How about Chris Buescher holding the pretty wheel in this 17 car, running up front with the big boys? He is headed to the front.
If you want to drive one of these, you have to have these, along with these, and these, and this stuff too.
Kelly will round out the top 5.
Hell of a car. Great job.
It was all the magic shifter. Yeah.
Great day for Fastenal and the Ford Mustang.
What a year for Roush Fenway Racing. They basically ran the table.
What a day this kid is having.
Edwards with the crossover. Just think how he set him up there, though. He'd been running that high groove.
Thank you. You know, the Fastenal Ford was fast all weekend. And
turn 4, and he will win stage 1.
Yeah, the Fastenal Mustang treating us good tonight.
Yep. After that.
All right. Well, thank everybody for being here. I think we thank somebody for wonderful info. Can't add it in.
Check. Jeff Gordon, 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Jeff Gordon, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, got you there. 1, 2. Chop back.
All right. I tell you what, you gotta love Zoom, guys. Who's ready to get back and do these things in person? With that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve Newmark. With that introduction, he should really knock it out of the park, Steve.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate everyone joining us. And I will tell you that we actually have held this announcement off because our hope was that we could all get in person, enjoy some food and drink, and do things a little more normally. Although we're making progress, we're not quite there. So we'll be relegated to Zoom for right now. But I am thankful that everyone's taking the time to join us. We are absolutely thrilled to announce that Fastenal and Roush Fenway have extended our partnership for an additional 3 years. So Fastenal has been an anchor for us for 11 years at this point. So this will keep us to 14 years and running. And it's something that we are extremely proud of. And I do want to express the gratitude on behalf of our whole organization to Ann, Brooke, and the entire Fastenal team. This partnership has kind of epitomized the true spirit, I think, of a relationship that goes well beyond just sponsorship. Fastenal has been kind of the rock and anchor for our organization for the last 11 years. And if you look at just what we've done together on the track, there's been some wonderful successes, 9 wins, and showing the kind of the breadth of their support. Fastenal has been on the cars of 8 different drivers here. And a wonderful tie to our current situation is when Chris Buescher won the Xfinity Championship, he had the Fastenal colors on the car in Homestead when he won that title. And obviously now the anchor on Chris for the 17. I think if you look at Fastenal, they've supported not just Roush Fenway, but all of motorsports. You see them with relationships with the track. If you listen to Sirius Radio, they're common with their advertisements and promotions on there as well. But for Roush Fenway, Fastenal has been much more than just a sponsor. They've been a differentiator for us in how we run our business. And what I mean by that is behind the scenes, when you look at our business operations, we have relied on Fastenal and their state-of-the-art technology for supply chain management, inventory control. You've got vending machines, bins, and logistics and everything that we do in building and running race teams. Fastenal has their fingerprints on, even with engineering support. In fact, last week when I was stuck at home, like probably many of you, because I couldn't get gas to fill my tank to get to work, I kept thinking that maybe the country would be a lot better off if Fastenal was the supply chain manager in charge of fuel distribution, and that would have alleviated some of those needs. But we're unbelievably grateful for the partnership, and quite frankly, as Jack has told me quite a bit, that you can learn a lot from your partners. And I think that when we look at Dan and Brooke and that entire team, we see how they operate from a business principles and ethics, and that their question is always, what's the right thing to do? And we've tried to embrace that, and are very thankful. So that's kind of where we are. I know, Kevin, I'll kick it back to you, and you can keep the questions coming.
All right, I guess Dan, again, we're joined by Dan Florness. He's the president and CEO of Fastenal. Dan, can you talk about the long-standing relationship that Fastenal has had with Roush Fenway and really what that means to you guys and what this renewal means?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things in life that we can make difficult on ourselves. There's some things that are pretty simple. And the first on that list is if you want to find success in life, you surround yourself with great people and you rise to the occasion to be part of that group, and you surround yourself with great organizations. And you know, when I think of our relationship with Jack and Roush Fenway Racing, it falls right into that. Great group. Have brought a lot of innovative ideas on our own sports marketing presence and how we communicate our culture and what we're about out to the world. And we're really proud to be partnered with them, and we look forward to many more years of success together.
Chris, we spoke about you having a long-standing relationship with Fastenal, going back even to your Xfinity days. Can you talk about what Fastenal's meant to you both on and off the track?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing for me to work with Fastenal back in 2015 for just a select few races. But I feel like most of my tenure here at Roush Fenway Racing, Fastenal has been an anchor partner on board of one of the cars here under this roof. So it's pretty amazing to know that we're going to continue that on and work together more going forward after this year and a half on the Cup side. You know, really appreciate all the support from Fastenal and enjoyed working with everybody over there. A lot of fun as a company to work with and try and create some content, trying to go out there and get those wins at the same time. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to spend near as much time together as we would have anticipated at the beginning of last season, but happy to see that finally coming around and have been able to start touring some of the Fastenal facilities, understanding a little bit more about their business principles and how they go about things. So it's been terrific. The Fastenal Mustang looks great on track this year. Loving the refresh on the paint scheme as well, just to brighten it up and get out in front of as many fans as possible. And again, just awesome to have that continuity. Look forward to be back with them. I'm a very hands-on person. You know, off the racetrack, like to work on a little bit anything and everything. So having the local Fastenal branch right over here in Concord by the shop, nice to grab anything I may need from there. So overall, it's just great partnership and very much looking forward to head into the next several years.
Chris, we certainly thank you for that. Again, for everybody on here, you should have received during this press conference, we sent out the release with the details of this Roush Fenway Fastenal renewal. So if you have any other questions beyond that, feel free to reach out to myself, any member of our staff here. We'd be happy to get you a copy of this if you need it, or any additional information that you're looking for. We'll be happy to help you there. I guess with that, what we will do is we will open it up to questions. So if you I think we're all pretty familiar with the hand raise button now, so we will do our best to accommodate questions. I believe the first one we have is Tucker White.
Go first. Chris, a big topic of conversation with the IndyCar community at Texas Motor Speedway a few weeks ago was the use of PJ1 there. Graham Rahal himself said that it was like walking on ice. How does that compare to your experience with the PJ1 there?
It's pretty accurate at certain times. I know the Indy cars are running a lot faster. Downforce is obviously way through the roof. Different tire. The PJ1 takes a certain amount of activation, and I think it's something that we've come to understand better. The formula NASCAR has done a more consistent job applying it, so that we have a little bit better idea of what's coming. I say all that, and when we ran the race there last year in the mist, it was extremely slick, and I unfortunately found out the hard way that it was very much like ice when it's wet. So when it's dry, that's definitely preferable. I think it's something that has been scienced out for a large part on our side, but I would say for IndyCar, I'd imagine it's just going to take more repetition for them to understand it and know how it has to come in for them going forward. So yes, at the very beginning of runs, it can be extremely slick and be the exact opposite of what they're trying to achieve. But it typically comes in pretty quick nowadays.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's go over to Bob, and then we'll go to Alex.
Yeah, this is I have a couple for Steve. First off, what does this signing mean to you as far as kind of stability? And is there a contract extension for Chris along with the contract extension with Fastenal?
Thanks, Bob. I think probably the word that you just used is kind of how I would describe our relationship with Fastenal. Is kind of stability has been the key. And, our intent is to, have Fastenal as a partner for as long as we're fielding race cars. And I think that, we have found that this relationship has worked on so many different levels. And, it's obviously comforting to have an anchor partner of Fastenal's nature and the 20,000 plus employees that they have supporting us. And I think it's also rare to see in this day and age a partner that has the continuity and is active at more than 20 plus races as a primary. And so we're greatly appreciative. As far as Chris's situation, I think you're familiar. We generally try to keep all of our contract discussions outside of the four walls of Roush. But, Chris and our arrangement is one that we expect it to continue not only through the next 3 years of the Fastenal relationship, but well beyond that as well.
And I'm going to ask you about contracts again. Do you have a contract with Keselowski for next year? And can you comment on any of those, his potential team ownership?
Sure. And I fair question. And I appreciate it's kind of front of mind based on some of the rumors that have been floating around, and necessary that for each of you guys to do your job to be probing on this. But, for today, we're going to keep the focus on our Fastenal and our partnership. And, I will attempt to deflect politely any questions around any of those rumors at this time.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Alex.
Yeah, I think Bob got most of mine in there, but I guess, Steve, kind of as a follow-up, how do you feel like sponsorship, like some of these relationships, I know you guys just had an announcement recently on other new sponsors that were sort of coming in. How do you feel like this long-term partnership is kind of, is working in tandem with some of these new sponsors that you're bringing on board? And where do you feel like Roush Fenway as a whole is right now when it comes to sponsors?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. I think, quite frankly, we hold the Fastenal relationship up as the gold standard, and we use it in all of our discussions when we're talking with new prospects about what can be done and how you can fully integrate. And I do have to thank Brooke and her team because they've served as resources. They've talked to prospects for us, talked to existing partners. And I think that that's been really helpful because you can see how we've activated with Fastenal across all sorts of different platforms over the years. And quite frankly, on the sponsorship front, I think we're pretty excited and positive about not only where we are, but where the sport is. I think the narrative about NASCAR coming out of 2020 with all the successes that we had amidst a very trying time for everyone, I think really has played well as we've been telling our story, and even where we're going with next gen with new tracks, like we're going to Dakota. I mean, I think the excitement is really palpable, and we've seen a ton of interest among actually new brands that have never been in the sport before, and even our existing brands have continued to expand how they activate and use the assets. So I think that, as you mentioned, we've added several new partners in the last couple months with Socios and Auto Tempest and IT Savvy, and our hope is that we can continue building that group.
Thank you.
My apologies. We'll go to Mitchell and then Marty.
Chris, you're having a pretty solid season so far, and you're currently inside of that playoff bubble. Does an announcement like this kind of raise your confidence going into the middle part of the season?
Yeah, we have had a really solid start to our season, and this definitely helps us have that security, knowing that we will continue to be with Fastenal moving forward. But ultimately, we've had our goals set before the season started. And so we have been working towards making the playoffs and winning races from the beginning. So we will keep after that in the exact same way. We are in the playoffs currently. I know it's pretty early to talk about it. Now I will say, if it had been any other year right now, we would be feeling pretty good about it at this point. But with as many different new winners we've had this season, it is definitely going to be a challenge on the points side. So definitely looking to get that win and to get that cup win for Fastenal as well. So we're still working hard on that. We've had some really strong showings this year at a lot of different types of racetracks, and have felt like we have improved every racetrack. Some less than others, but every racetrack we have gotten better than where we were previous year. So we feel very confident that we are heading in the right direction, that a lot of work went the right way through the off season, that a lot of goals were correct in heading us down a path that we feel like is making us more competitive every week. So yeah, it's definitely exciting news. And everyone got together and surprised me on this last week doing a preview. So it was something I didn't even know about until we got together and did our previews for last weekend, and was definitely exciting news for me knowing that Fastenal is back on board. It's been awesome working with Fastenal, not just as a sponsor on the car side, but as Steve has mentioned, as a partner throughout the entire business and throughout the entire organization, and how they really help us operate more efficiently in so many different ways. So yeah, it's all good news. It's all exciting, and it's all helpful as we continue to fight our way into the playoffs for this season and head towards victory lane.
All right, we'll go to Marty.
Thanks, Kevin. Gentlemen, thanks for the time and congratulations on the extension with Fastenal. Chris, my questions are both for you. First one kind of just as a follow-up to Mitchell's question, but this seems to be have been your best start yet. What are the positives you've taken away from the first half of the regular season?
It's definitely our most competitive season to date, which is really exciting. Because I've talked about it actually a lot this year, especially at the beginning. I felt like last season was more difficult than my rookie season in Cup. Without practice, with coming back to Roush, and really starting fresh in so many different ways. It was a very difficult season, and my hopes and expectations at the beginning were not met. Not to make excuses, but largely due to the fact that we weren't able to practice and build our notebook up and find our starting point week in and week out. It was our reality, as well as a handful of others. We weren't the only one in that situation, but this year has, I should go back to the off season. It was nice to see a very specific game plan put into motion, a lot of strong goals set to accomplish that we felt like as a company would make our race cars faster, and to see those goals accomplished and stretched further. So I think all of that has come into play and has led us to a stronger start to the season. We felt like our mile and a halves have made good progress. Our short tracks have made some progress. Our road courses have gotten much better. Our super speedway cars are always strong. Unfortunately, Daytona ended up in that first melee and don't have anything to show for that one. So at the end of the day, we have improved every race that we've gone to this season over the previous, and so we know we're heading in the right direction. We know we've had a strong season. We're racking up a handful of top tens now, and ultimately it takes top tens to run in the top five to win races. So it's just about stepping it up consistently over the next handful of weeks, and stepping up even more than we did through the off season. So definitely an exciting year, and from that front, we're greedy. We've grown up racing and winning anywhere that you've run, and trying to elevate yourself. So you want more every week, but there's a measurable progress that we've seen at the beginning of the season that it's easy for me to overlook as I'm trying to again be greedy and grab as much as we can. But it's definitely been a very solid progression.
Second, as we head into the weekend at COTA, you've got 50 minutes of practice time at a track we've never been to before. what's the first thing you're looking at in practice just to get a feel for the car, the braking zones going into the corners? What are you looking at for that practice session?
Yeah, so 50-minute practice, you're looking at 2 runs, maybe 3. And at that, that's going to be 3 or 4 lap runs. Very limited track time. It sounds good, but the track is so massive, over 2 minutes to make a lap. It's going to go quick. So the time is, not the laps. We're going to be looking at the braking zones as a big part of it, trying to get that depth into our memory bank so that we can make consistent laps. It'll be nice to have practice in general so we can make adjustments and try and tune on our car, something we haven't been able to do in a very long time. We're going to have a game plan in motion before we ever get there, being that it is going to be 2 changes max. We'll work hard with Ryan and the 6 bunch to try and offset some changes so we can double up our time there, as well as working with front row through some of our meetings we've already talked about, trying to gather as much information as possible in that very limited amount of time. I know we've got a little bit of weather in the forecast that will balance out. My parents are within 45 minutes of the racetrack down there, so been getting news updates, weather updates from them, and it said storming every day. So don't know what we're going to get on that front, but it's going to be really exciting. We've got some laps around Coda in a Mustang, so it's not that I don't know the track. We'll be iRacing this evening at Coda as well. I'm not saying I'm going to learn much from that one. Those are usually a little rougher than the actual races, but it'll still be good to get some track time and try and start learning some of our braking points, some of the bumps on the racetrack, and where our big heavy cars are going to be the most efficient. So definitely looking forward to a new racetrack. I'm really excited. Coda is a incredible facility. So looking forward to it putting on a really good show this weekend.
Thank you, Chris. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Dustin, and then we'll take Claire.
Thank you. I had a few questions. Well, first of all, I want to ask Dan. Dan, last year in the All-Star race, the numbers were put further out in the back of the car. It allowed sponsorship to kind of have a little bit more of that space in the front. There's been still a lot of discussion about what to do with the numbers. Since you were a sponsor that had that experience last year, what did it do for your company to kind of have that different location on the side of the cars?
I don't know if I have a strong opinion on the placement of the number on the side of the car. I know the folks at Roush have done a really nice job of having great paint schemes, just having great looks to the car, changing it up every so often, and making it a fun car for us to participate in. We're lined with some great people, but it's NASCAR resonates really well within the Fast organization and our customer base, and I think that's what holds the strongest card in that game.
Thanks. And for Steve, I guess a couple things. One is just on that is obviously, as Dan says, not as much of a factor for him. For your other sponsors, is that something that is more of a factor, and kind of your feelings on the number location as that's being looked at and considered for next year?
Sure. I think that when we look at the number location, it's not necessarily through just the lens of sponsorship. I think we look at it through the lens of kind of what's the best thing for the sport. And if you look at the fact that we are transitioning to a completely new car, new platform, and so kind of we want this to be fresh, different, and provide as much energy and excitement as possible. And so when we look at it at Roush, we've actually, had fun here internally, moving the number around, playing around with it, and how can you come up with the most compelling look and feel of the car. And I love that we've actually gone back and looked at how the numbers have been in NASCAR in the past. And to me, I always think it's fun to have a link to our lineage and our history because we're so proud of everything that's going on in this sport. And so really that's what we're looking at. We obviously, of course, consult with our partners because we want them to be happy with however we lay it out. But for us, it really is about trying to tie into the tradition of the sport. And, we'll ultimately provide our input to NASCAR along those lines.
And Steve, with the sponsorship, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 23 points races last year. You've done. Fastenal's been on the car 9 of the first 13 races this year. Is 23 the number this year? Is that the number moving forward, or does it go up, or what's the number moving forward?
So I think the way that we've operated with Fastenal is somewhat probably different than the traditional where it's locked in. It's been a very, very fluid, and we work with them. I mean, there's obviously, they are the anchor partner on the 17 and generally have, somewhere in the vicinity of 20 races. But, as their needs change, as our needs change, it really is a collaborative effort. I mean, we've gone to them at times and said, hey, we have a new prospect, a new partner coming in, and this market is their home market. They would really like to have it. And so Fastenal has relinquished that so we could continue to grow it. On the flip side, when we've gone to some new markets that maybe Fastenal didn't necessarily have, they've come to us and say, hey, we'd like to add these because this is a big, foundational base for not only Fastenal, but some of our partners. I mean, they've got 3,200 locations around the U.S., so they're pretty much everywhere. But so it's a long-winded way of saying it's a little bit fluid, but I think as a sound bite on it, they're generally going to be in the 20 to 22 range each year and have been in the past.
One last thing, Steve, from a team ownership perspective, obviously teams have talked about with the new car coming in, certainly there'll be some costs that will go up because of the transition to the new car and changes for teams. Obviously, I know there'll be some ways teams can save some money. How important is it to get a sponsorship, additional sponsorship, to try to bring in some additional money to kind of help cover some of those costs? Obviously, the charter payments aren't going to probably cover everything. So how do you find that, fill in that gap, I guess?
Sure. I think everyone on this call recognizes that we are unique in the big U.S. professional sports in that our business model is different. And, as a rule of thumb, 75% of teams' revenues come from our partners. And that's why they're completely and truly integrated into everything that we do. I don't think Next Gen changes that, although the cost of Next Gen gets a lot of publicity. That wasn't the driving force, at least from our perspective, about why we're doing this. It makes the cars more relevant. It updates the technology with the transaxle and allowing potential hybridization component. Plus, the look and feel is just closer to what we see on the streets. That said, racing is expensive. It always has been, probably always will be, because we're all highly competitive, looking for every advantage that we can. And there's no doubt that we are unable to do what we love, and Chris is unable to be on the track unless you have partners like Fastenal who stand behind you. That is what drives our sport and allows us to put race cars on the track every weekend.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
All right, we'll go to Claire, then Jordan.
Got it. So I'd like to talk to Dan. Dan, obviously you've been a part of Roush Fenway and also this sport for a long time. What do you find that is solid about Roush Fenway or NASCAR in your investment in the sport after all the sport's been through with COVID, et cetera, et cetera? You've been around for a while with Roush Fenway and with NASCAR.
Well, first off, on the COVID front, it was great last year to see society taking small steps, but steps back to something that looks a little more normal, and to see something out there that was real again. And I'm proud of how NASCAR was right there to figure that out, and all the teams. And we were there to support and do everything we could to help in that effort. Some things that we really like about the sport is, as Steve mentioned, we're in a lot of places. We're in 25 countries. We're in every state within the U.S. And the nice thing about NASCAR, we're sponsoring a team. We're not that's not limited to one geography. And so it allows us to do something that resonates throughout the organization as opposed to a smaller subset. And that's probably the biggest thing that gives us appeal. And the fact that it's a sport with great traditions and with credibility. From the standpoint of, Jack Roush is as good a person and innovative mind, and he's a joy to be around. And that you feel that through the entire organization. And we felt that ever since we first became involved 11 years ago.
Well, like I said, you've been a great partner, and I don't expect for you to talk about, the storyline that came out this week. But I would like to ask you if you feel like you know where Roush Fenway Racing is going in general, that you are in on whatever plans there are for the future, whatever it is, right? And that you feel comfortable with wherever they're going. I mean, do you talk through 2004 and what the plans are, you as a partner?
We have a lot of discussions. Most of those discussions center on, in some cases, educating us on things with the car or what the sport's trying to accomplish, and really to educate us from the standpoint of understanding how that plays into our marketing. There's a lot of stuff they will consult with us on, which I found refreshing in a learning experience. Probably the only comment I could make on the news of the week is this morning, and I see your name is Claire. My wife and I have 4 children. Our youngest, Anna Claire, passed her driver's test. So we know in the Flornes household who's going to be a driver in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah. Oh no, another Claire on the road. It could be trouble.
There you go.
So Claire,
Listen.
maybe the news is that Claire Flornes will be part of our driver development program starting in 2022.
Are you kidding or are you telling the truth?
No, I'm kidding. I was just playing on the fact that she passed her driver's test this morning. So maybe I should clarify that was sarcasm with attempt at humor.
Anna
well, if
Claire
she wants to be,
here.
if she wants to be, she probably could be. I thank you for that. You've been a partner for a long time, and I thank you for that answer. Thanks, appreciate it. All right.
All right, we'll go to Jordan.
Hi, this question's for Steve. Steve, how would you assess the sponsorship climate right now coming out of the pandemic? Are you finding that companies are still kind of leery of jumping back in and wanting to spend money? Or are you finding that companies are kind of eager to get back out there and spend money?
Yeah, what we're finding, and I think we're not alone in this, is that there are brands out there that are embracing the opportunity to become part of this sport. I can't speak to whether that's across all sports. I just know the storyline for NASCAR is so positive, whether you're looking at the engagement, the viewership, and even look at how resilient the sport was last year across a lot of different fronts, when quite frankly, some other sports had struggled. We've really seen brands being much more receptive and amenable, and actually even searching out opportunities. I think that's led to us adding a number of new partners and expanding. You've seen it with, even across the sport, other teams jumping in. And so I view it, very much as a positive momentum right now, probably more so than we've had in a decade of my experience.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to Anton and then Dan.
Yeah, sorry. So, good afternoon, gentlemen. And my question is to Chris. Chris, COTA is a brand new track in the NASCAR schedule. So, what do you expect to be different from any other road course you've been to?
Sure. Very different from a lot of aspects. It's a very long course, which to me is going to be a little bit similar to Road America, which we are looking forward to going to in the Cup Series for the first time in a handful of weeks as well. But on the COTA front, I think what's going to be unique there is you're looking at 4 hairpin corners that are first gear in our race cars, in our current car. You start thinking about Watkins Glen or Sonoma. We really don't have that many slow corners. And then on top of that, you think about the straightaway between turns 11 and 12 is an incredibly long straightaway at the same time. You're looking at a massive speed difference from top speed to that hairpin getting into 12. So it's going to be hard on equipment again, something that I think our equipment has really caught up to the road courses that we currently run, and surviving them has not been an issue. I think that you may run into to abusing equipment at COTA. I think that is one possibility. The next thing is the track was pretty specifically designed for a different style of racing on the open wheel side and really high downforce F1 cars. With that being said, it doesn't change everything, but the way that they paved those hairpin corners, you basically have asphalt all the way down to the apex of the corner, and it's just a point of a curve sticking out. So It does increase the chances of dive bombs, for lack of a more official term, but we definitely are going to be aware of the possibility of somebody overdriving the corner. We're going to make a mistake, brake lock up or wheel hop and get inside, and could very easily T-bone you, really, as you try and set up for some of those corners. So that is going to be very unique, something that we do not have at any of these other courses, just due to the build and construction of that racetrack. So something to keep in mind. Hopefully, turn one will be very interesting on restarts. I'm thinking like Pocono or Michigan interesting. So sure to be wild on that front. There's a lot of unknowns into it though as well. So we'll really have to wait and see how this one plays out to see. But the good news is we will have 3 different series on track, and so we will have plenty of time to watch before we get to the Cup race to maybe have a little bit better idea of how that first lap is going to go.
Thank you. Wishing you all the best for this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Daniel.
All right, thanks. I have 2 questions for Steve. First, Steve, it's been a few months since the news broke that LeBron James had bought into the Fenway Sports Group. And I'm curious, has that any effect from that trickled down to Roush Fenway racing in any way, shape, or form?
Sure. So, I wouldn't say there has been a direct impact on LeBron's kind of enhanced engagement at Fenway. He's always been, part of the Fenway Sports Group, at least in recent years, and even has been a part owner in Liverpool before. He just expanded his presence. I think probably the bigger theme behind that transaction, which LeBron was part of, is that the Fenway Sports Group is expanding their sports empire. And, we're very fortunate to be, a piece of that with the Red Sox, with Liverpool and Roush Fenway. And, I'm really excited about where the future's going. I think Fenway is extremely positive about the direction of the sport. They really see the next gen platform as being something that's going to be good for both Roush Fenway and the overall sport. And so we expect kind of more continued engagement from the Fenway side. As some of you know, the Fenway Sports Management team they've got their sales team that works hand in hand with our group, and they've been responsible, quite frankly, for bringing a lot of our partners in. And so, I can tell you that I'd hope at some point that we can get LeBron to a race, and we'll see if we can make that come to fruition. Having seen Chris shoot a basketball, I'm not sure that we will pair them together on the court, but we'd obviously love to host him at some point.
Okay. And second, with the next gen car coming next year, how are you anticipating Roush Fenway having to restructure itself anyway through like infrastructure, personnel, in order to just get itself ready to accommodate everything that comes with the next gen car?
Sure, it's a great question, and quite frankly, it's one that every team is wrestling with. I'm on calls every once in a while with kind of other team presidents, and we're all grappling with all of the issues. Actually, it's quite, I think a lot of it's really exciting, but there's all sorts of granular things that are behind the scenes, such as how do you get show cars to be ready so we can make sure we've got a next-gen show car for Fastenal, as well as all the stuff that goes out on the track. But the reality of what we've been doing is we've been doing an analysis of our facilities and looking at how the build flow will go with the new car, because I think we all recognize that the way we've been building cars in the current generation will not necessarily be the most efficient and apply to the next gen. And so we're all trying to get our arms around how you put the parts and pieces together. And then, of course, when you do that, you're trying to maximize and figure out where can I get an advantage and where can I find more speed in the next guy. But it is definitely something that we're dealing with on a daily basis, where you're kind of parallel paths. You are trying to make sure that you can get both cars in the playoffs in 21, which is our goal and objective, while also making sure that when 2022 starts, that we are in a really good spot from the next gen. And that encompasses reevaluating every part of how you operate on the competition side.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll take it back to Dustin Long for what I believe will be our final question. If you have another, raise your hand.
Thanks, Kevin. For Steve, we got a couple questions. Look, obviously, the last year and a half, the interaction with fans has been basically in this type of format. Obviously, we're seeing fans coming back to the track, and some tracks having the opportunity to have full capacity. How does the fan interaction, what is it going to be like moving forward? Obviously, these experiences you don't unlearn these things. I'm sure some practices will be taken from this, but what's the fan experience going to be like? And with the teams, does the garage aspect change, or does it need to return back to normal? Does the Zoom thing become more paramount in some ways? Can you kind of explain some of that, please?
Sure. I think our goal and NASCAR's goal is to get back to normal, meaning have the garage look like it used to look. That doesn't mean we're not going to have to take some learnings and do some adjustments based on what experience all of us have had over the last 18 months. But at the end of the day, a cornerstone of how we operate is providing these memories and these experiences for fans and our partners. And a lot of that happens at the track. So I think our hope is that we're going to slowly open up the infields, allow our partners to have these experiences, allow the fans to have the interaction with the drivers. So I don't see there being any intent to do anything less than what we've done in the past. I will say that this past 18 months has opened our eyes to ways that we can connect with fans who might not be able to travel to the track. We do a production now on every race day that is broadcast over Zoom or Teams or whatever medium we choose, that if Fastenal is the primary sponsor, they might have their 8 guests at track, they might have some folks in the suite, but we can broadcast, Jack or Chris or crew chiefs or any type of special videos where we can do that with a group of Fastenal suppliers or customers that might be not even in the state. And so it really opens up who we can reach on a race weekend and give them a glimpse into our world. But I do know a lot of us are excited to be getting back. I'm extremely fired up to go to COTA. I'm in the non-essential category, so I have not been in the infield for the last year, and ready to go back and ready to welcome fans and partners back in as well.
Also, one other thing, Steve, is a lot of people talk about what has happened over in F1 in terms of like the Netflix series that they've had over the last few years, and certainly some people talk about, hey, that's something that should be done in NASCAR. You talk about reaching out to fans who can't get to the track per se. Is something like this, a behind the scenes type of production, something that the sport needs? Is it something that the teams are pushing, or is it something that maybe coming from NASCAR, or is too much being made of this type of thing?
Yeah, I think I would say, and probably a little bit repetitive with some of my other comments, is that I think the sports trajectory is in a really good place right now. And I think you take a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, and there's a really positive narrative that's going on. That said, we should always be looking at new innovation, new ways to get our story and our message out, because we think it's a compelling one. And so I think the F1 series was great. We've had lots of discussions among the teams with NASCAR about the right way to do something like that. There have been some smaller efforts last year that were along those lines. But if I was a bet man, I would say yes, definitely in the future you'll see something along those lines that is produced with NASCAR and the teams, and how that manifests itself and how it does it, I'm not privy to it, but I do think it's something that we would embrace and welcome.
You anticipate then saying that the 2022 season is one that certainly it could be the season that be obviously you talked about the new car transition, new changes that would be certainly an easy dropping point for that to happen.
Yeah. I know that, from the Roush Fenway perspective, we are looking at what's coming as a great opportunity to capture content about this show. I mean, it's a fantastic storyline, and there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that the average fan can't see because they're not in our shop on a daily basis. So I do believe it's a very prime opportunity for either Roush, the industry, or whomever to tell a story and show it to the world.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
All right, any more questions? All right, well, certainly we thank each of you for your time today. We thank Steve, Dan, and Chris for joining us as well. And again, if there's any additional information related to this, the Fastenal News, let us know. We'll be glad to assist you with that. And we look forward to hopefully seeing some of you this weekend at COTA and on down the line. So thanks again.
Thank you.